remember what you said, like you were saying, like when you have children, you know, and we talked about this last night when we was discussing some stuff, and I was just telling him, you know, me and my father, we didn't have the best relationship, you know what I'm saying? But I remember when I was a little boy, I used to look up, thought my dad was the coolest cat in the world, and I just looked up to everything he did. You know what I'm saying? And as a little boy, when he used to come pick me up, I'd be run to the window, looking. My mom be like, your dad gonna come get you? So I'm looking at the window. Never come. So that I, you know, and if he did come, it would be later and later. Then I'm running to the window, and started never coming. And so I started building this coldness. You know what I'm saying? I started building this coldness until my attitude as I grew up, my attitude was like, I don't care. So no matter what it was, I'm like, I don't care. You know what I mean? It could be some traumatic stuff with me or somebody else. I'm like, I don't care. So that was my go-to, my mask. Like, you know what I'm saying? That was the way I protected myself from anybody. I said I never let anybody get close to me to hurt me. But you know what I mean? And me and my wife, we talk about sometimes, like, you know, like with your family. Like you got some people in your family like, bro, crazy. I don't want to be like this one. I don't want to be like that. But that's in you. That's your family. They in you. So, and we always talk about my house. If you don't want that to be you, change it while you can before. And I started taking on some of my dad's personalities. I remember as a little boy, my mom like, you act just like your crazy dad. They used to bother me, man. Because I said, I ain't want to be nothing like him. And as I started having children, I was like, I'm not going to be the dad my dad was to me. And so I tried to be different, but yet I had so much trauma that I still pushed some of them off of my children. And I have something that none of you brothers have. I have all three of my children in this building today. You know what I'm saying? No, I mean, all your kids here? Just one? See, all three of my children, the other one, she's out there cooking. And probably about a year ago, I apologized to my kids or whenever. I said, I want to apologize, man. You know what? I messed up. Hey, Dad, what do you mean? Dad, you was great. No. And I told my son, I said, once you start having children, you'll see what I mean. You know what I mean? That love now with your son, that love that you have for him, you can't, you know what I mean? It's different, ain't it? So it's different. The love you have for your son, you will stop a train for that young man. And I feel that way for y'all, you know what I mean? So you understand what I was saying, you know what I mean? It's just different, you know what I mean? When you have that little joker, you know what I'm saying, that you watched him grow up. So, you know, I love you. Love you.
Love you too.
I tell her I love her out there, wherever she out there cooking. But I lost my train of thought, man.
That's okay.
That's okay.
Dr. Lord, take it over. You did. Y'all breaking me down
Go
bad,
ahead.
child.
Yeah, this is heavy because addressing that, you know, I think all of us in here can identify with that. You were talking about how, you know, waiting on your father. And I think all of us in here can identify with the anticipation piece of that. You know, because we've all, you know, you never that never gets old. You know, wanting that affirmation from your father, because even in biological terms, it's the father who dictates the identity of the child. You know what I'm saying?
But society make it different.
But it's the father.
Yeah,
even you can break it down, like I said, in biology terms. It's the father's seed that determines, you know, the identity of the child.
That's right. That's
So
right.
so even in biblical sense, it's the father who gives us our identity, our purpose. You know, even my brother right here, you know, as successful as you are, that hole is still there. And the only solace that I can give him is that your heavenly father can and will be enough.
Come on.
And maybe that is your burden to carry. That is your cape. You know,
Oh man,
we all
that's
have
so
one.
good.
You know, but that's your portion. And you have to carry that. You have to embrace that. And you have to love yourself in spite of that. You know what I'm saying? So
I remember it was my birthday, and I didn't have a car. I think I was 20, 21 years old. And my mom was like, call your dad. Let me see if he'll let you use one of his cars. And I'm like, man, I remember where I was at. I was at my grandmother's house. I was in the hallway. I'm like, man, I ain't calling him, man. Forget that dude. And when I walked in the room, he was sitting there, and me and him made eye contact. I just looked at him, he put his head down, got up and walked out. I'm a grown man now. I don't need you. So I thought. I don't need you, so I thought I didn't need him. And fast forward to, because I was, 20, and then 53? How old am I, baby? 53. 53. It's real out here. You know? So, like what was it, in 2017? 2017, we had, he's always been there, in and out my life, but we had Thanksgiving, and my wife said, invite your dad. I'm like, man, I ain't mess with that dude, man, She said, invite your dad to Thanksgiving. I said, okay. I called him, hey, man, you want to have Thanksgiving with us? He said, yeah. So we had Thanksgiving. So happy, he enjoyed. He was calling my uncle and everything. This the best time I've ever had in my life. Best time. But by that time, I was over it. I wasn't even as angry I used to be because we talk every now and then throughout the years. So, like a month later, probably not even. It was about 2 or 3 weeks later. I went, check on him. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm getting ready to go to the emergency room. I'm like, what's wrong with you? And he was like, I don't feel good. So I went, I said, well, look, I'm going to jump in the shower. I'll be ready. I'll take you. So I went, opened the door, walked, and he was sitting on the stairs because you come through the house, the stairs right there. And I'm looking at my dad. My dad has been the same size his whole life, little teeny joker. When I walked through the door, my dad was bulky. And it looked natural on him. I'm looking at him. I said, man, get up and come on, let's go now. I said, but you don't see you. I feel like I gained a little weight. I thought it was just from the holiday. I said, man, come on. So I took him to Norfolk General. And when we got to there was no parking, so I said, I'm going to drop you off and I'm going to find parking space. So I'm riding around, boom, boom, boom. It's hard to find a parking space. Probably was going 15, 20 minutes trying to find and walk back. So when I came back, he was like, the doctor already been in here. I said, okay. I said, what they say? He's like, he said he'll be back. So when the doctor came back in, he was like, I'm 90-some% sure I know what's wrong with you. I'm saying to myself, you ain't run no test. What you talking? He said, I think you got cancer. And I'm like, man, that sure is something to tell somebody. That's his profession. That's what he do every day. He know the symptoms that was put on the paper. So they said, we're going to keep you. And the next day, they came back results. He had cancer. So they started him with his treatment. And we were going to treatment for about a month before we talked to somebody, and they was like, did they explain to you what type of cancer? I'm like, no. And they just told him, said, it's terminal. I'm like, terminal? I'm so, terminal? And he said, 70%, the type he had, 70% of the people that have your type of cancer is dead within 9 months to a year. My dad died 9 months after his diagnosis. And I said all that to say this, the time that he was going back and forth to the doctors, I took him, me and my dad, we had got so close. I felt like that little boy.
Come on, man.
You know what I'm saying? Y'all got to excuse me. When I used to look up to my dad, I'm a grown man, I'm 40-something years old, looking at my dad again. Just that little boy that I thought looking out the window, man, forget him, man, I don't care. And I was looking at my dad and I was so excited to be in the presence of my dad as a grown man. That one I didn't think I needed no more. I just needed, that attention. So that's why, man, my son, I love you. If I've ever done anything, I'm sorry. You know what I'm saying? And I don't say that because I've been a bad father. People are like, man, what you do to that boy? You abuse him, you neglect him. You could always, I was there. We don't have to prove how great of a father or good or whatever the father, but I didn't do everything right with my son, you know what I mean? And I love all my kids, you know what I'm saying? But, and just like when I tell people now, like about raising kids, like we talked to your wife last night, and I said, y'all a little bit older in age and y'all to figure some things out. Y'all got a chance to do something nobody has ever done. Get it right the first time. You don't have to say to my kids, I'm sorry, I messed up. But you're not gonna get everything right. You're gonna make mistakes. But some mistakes you don't have to make. You know what I mean? So
yeah. I always tell the kids, make new mistakes. Don't make the same mistakes.
Exactly.
Yeah, make new mistakes.
Dang, y'all. Y'all, they got me broke down like 4 flats, y'all. Oh. Okay, what can be considered emotional kryptonite for men? We almost at the finish line, y'all.
For me, I believe the inability to seek for help. It's nothing like just being alone in a room and not know where to turn, and not knowing how to effectively communicate that, and then through the ends, when you don't know how to communicate, you have this built up aggression, and or whatever thing might lead you to that you may be, will lead you in situations where you shouldn't be in. So, and then it's being lonely and not being able, and just like just standing yourself in the mirror and having that only image to talk to, and that's a lonely place. It's a lonely place, and you can fall on your knees, talk to God, and which I have done several times. But also just having that person, or having that your person for you, and that knows you and knows your heart, know how you think, know how you move. If you don't have that, then the world is a lonely place, and it's a cold world without it. So I feel like that, and then also and that goes into isolation too. And then you put yourself in this bubble or this sink when you continue to keep sinking and sinking until if you don't get help, you're gonna drown.
Yes. That's good. I love that. Anybody else? I just know that when I was doing, me and my dad, we spent a lot of time like coming up with this, and this was just like kitchen talks. I was just talking about like the theme. Superman just kept coming up, and he said something so profound to me, and y'all will see when we do an intervention. It was like, it was crazy how like Superman was basically indestructible, but it was this one little small thing that could literally just destroy him or at least put him down bad, right? And so when I think about the kryptonite, what I would like a lot more men to be honest with saying, like, we have them. We all have an Achilles heel. You have a question?
I actually got a comment. Can I say?
Yeah, you want you want the mic?
I can speak without.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, but they want to be
We'll
here.
project, yeah.
So,
Introduce yourself, Mr. Manley.
how you doing?
He one of the vendors,
Frank, man, I'm
y'all.
a vendor here, but some of the things you guys say are profound. When you said emotional kryptonite for men, I want to kind of piggyback off of what my cousin-in-law Lamont said. So his beautiful wife is my cousin, and that 87-year-old man.
Hey up, Monica.
Is my father-in-law. so shout out to family. But he mentioned slavery, and now not saying the impact. When you think about the impact of slavery, I think it's Dr. Joy DeGruy. She has a book called
Post-traumatic slave disorder.
Exactly. And what happens when you say emotional kryptonite for us as men, when you take a man and treat him as property for so many years, his foundation, and he's bred because of his stock. And then once he has a baby, he's not allowed to have that family.
That's right.
And he's moved out to another to breed somewhere else and move from another plantation to plantation. We have to think about the indirect foundation that ties to sexual promiscuity, chasing skirts, the need to not settle down, in those things. So I think when I think of our brothers, especially when we get younger, if I had my guess, everyone here has had they're saved. I hear a lot of people reference God, but I think a lot in our community, that notch on that belt is an emotional kryptonite that we lean on early on
So good.
to feel validated.
Yeah.
So when you say emotional kryptonite, I just had to put that up there and say, hey, look, I think that's probably, especially in our community, for men, maybe men in general, but I really think that piece, we use sexual pleasure, and women as an emotion to heal those wounds. And you know what that does? It leads to a continual trauma because my brother, his dad wasn't there. You know what I'm saying? And while he didn't have any other many siblings, I'm pretty sure dad, no disrespect against him, probably had a whole bunch of notches on his belt.
Yeah.
So my thing is that when we think about that and we use that as a validation, it's actually a weakness. And that I would say, I would think that would be a key emotional kryptonite.
I think that is so good. Yeah. Thank you so much, Mr. Manley. That was amazing. Anybody else want to tag this question? So what can be considered emotional kryptonites for men?
I'll touch on a little bit. What I'm going to do is kind of it sounds like we have some men here that didn't have fathers in their home. Again, I did, and I'm going to kind of peel it on back a little bit to talk about my relationship with my father. My father was in my house. I lost my father when I was 20 years old, and up until I became an adult, I harbored emotions for my father that were, I wanted to do some terrible things because of how I was raised, and I won't go too much in depth about it. So it, for me, and it kind of, we talked on slavery a little bit, and in the things I learned in history about slavery, our people were beat. I believe that, and I can speak for myself, that those mental and physical beatings were passed down
That's
to
right.
our people.
That's right.
And for me, it was passed down through my father, but I made a conscious decision to cut it off with my children. I don't believe you have to get respect or any kind of positive accolades because of lashings. 24/7, all day long. It does not need it. But again, history will tell you that that's how you tear a man down. Keep their foot on their necks. And up until I became an adult, I held that against my father. Man, every time, something happens with me, no matter what, that was the answer.
Gotta resort to a beatdown.
Yep.
Wow.
And when I had children, I said, you know what? It stops here. It's other ways that I can get positive attributes from my children other than verbal and physical.
That's right.
You know, I love that, man. You know something? That's something
What am I getting?
that's something I talk about in my book as well. How my mom used to beat me with whatever. It could be a race car track as a kid. I mean, she'd tell me go get the switches off the tree, the water hose, whatever. She would beat me if I'm messing up in school, not doing my homework, or whatever, But the thing is, she would beat me, but she not once set me down to show me the answer to the question. Because she didn't know. She dropped out like in the 9th grade. So I love that, but I do the same thing with my grandkids, man. I don't believe in the beat. I threaten them that I'm gonna get the belt, but I won't do it because it talks about in the Bible that the wars not against flesh and blood, it's against principalities.
That's so true. That's so
It's the
good.
mind.
Right.
That's how they tricked us, the mind. So you got to go back to the root of it. It just mental resurrection.
Real quick before we
Go ahead.
real quick, and I'm gonna let y'all.
And then we
in the
also have a question from the audience as well.
I go to the barbershop I go to the barbershop every Saturday, and I love the barbershop because it's similar to what we're doing right here. We get fellowship and kick it and talk trash. And a guy who was a really good friend of mine, he said, Leonard, you need to make your kids not like you and you get the best from them. And I explained, that's your way of how you do with, you raise your children. I explained to him, I have 5 children that carry my last name that I've pretty much raised. And each of them have different personalities and characteristics. I can't treat them all the same to get results. And same thing with what we're talking about right now. We're all different, but if you're trying to get a result from someone, you can't treat them the same. You can't give them same input to get the same output. You got to, and I'm gonna get the result. I have a 31-year-old. He's very successful. My youngest is 13. I expect the same results for him to be successful, but I know I can't give him the same energy. I can't give. It's 2026 right now. I can't do what I did in 1995.
That's right.
So I say that to say that the things we learned back then, ain't gonna work for
Nah,
our community right now.
Let me, I'm right quick,
Okay.
right quick.
We just have a
To
question.
give you an example how it's so important for men to be in their kids' lives. When I went to prison, my youngest son was like 5 months. When I came home, he was living out in Oakley Park. He had failed twice. He was carrying guns. He was robbing, smoking drugs. You can take him and say, hey, little man, go. He want to put that cake like you here, go rob the bank. He gonna go do it. I knew he needed me. I came home and I got him. My wife said, yeah, bring him to Charlotte with us. I took him I felt good as a father. This time I take my son to school and put him in high school. I remember him coming home telling me, Daddy, they gave me ROTC and I don't want ROTC. I said, nah, you need ROTC. I was in the military, you need that discipline. When my son came home with that ROTC uniform on and I cut his hair, just to see a young black man with a tie, pants up on his butt. Me and my wife, he loved my wife right to this day. That boy graduated second in command in high school. He went on to North Carolina A&T and got his master's degree in sports medicine on the Dean's List.
Period. Love
I'm
that.
telling you what I know. When us as men stop the games, be faithful to your wives, man. Grab the kids. I know what they need. I go in Charlotte. I used to go to the juvenile detention center before they closed it down. I begged the sheriff not to close it down. These young kids that I'm mentoring to, they probably gonna be locked up for the next 30 to 40 years. But when they talk, they cussing. And I get them to stop cussing, man. We got females in the room. We got ladies in the room. You know, stop the cussing. And they will stop. They can easily say, man, who you think you is, man? I'm going to prison for 40, 50 years. It's in them. But because that image that they trying to portray out in these games and stuff, man,
Right.
it's costing them. We gotta get them.
I love that, Uncle Lamai. We're going to wrap up, y'all, because we have another segment that we have to transition to. But we do have a question from the audience, so I'm going to have Dr. Anderson. I think you had a statement.
Yeah, I wanted to say, I didn't know we could talk, but
You want me to give you the mic? That was so good, Uncle Lamai. I appreciate y'all. We're not going to ask the last question.
Just like Mr. Manley used to lead the way in high school with us, I'm following suit. And everyone who knows me knows I'm a talker, so I'm gonna make this short. But in regards to the kryptonite for a male, I believe there are multiple forms of kryptonite that affect us. But one is not addressing that inner child. That inner child, the examples that the men have given up there about the situations with their fathers, not addressing that throughout your life can really be a kryptonite to you.
yes.
And that can be a problem for male and female, but obviously the topic is for males. And that is one that can certainly be a kryptonite to us. And then also the second thing I want to say is that not recognizing that you are a superhero. As human beings, we are phenomenal beings. God has, when you think about what we are made of, it took at least 2 supernovas to create the stardust that's part of our DNA.
Wow.
Which makes us extraterrestrial.
Okay.
So yes, God put us together, but how he put us together, the material that he made us out of, we are superheroes.
Yes.
So when we don't recognize that and don't understand, obviously, the other things that have been mentioned, the last thing I want to say is to all of us as men, cry.
Come on, man. I was just going to say that.
Cry. If you don't feel you want to do it in front of people, find a room, find a place, cry. Science tells us that when you cry in a situation of being upset,
and not holding it in and you cry, you're releasing stress hormones. That's why we feel better after we cry.
Yes.
So there's a article in Harvard Health in 2020 that talked about women cry between 2 and 3 times a month. As men, we cry less than twice a month, which we know that affects us with our health because we're holding those feelings in. It's got to come out. That's right. It came in, so it's got to exit, and it's gonna exit one way or another. So those would be the things that I would like to say. I would like to say more, but I'm gonna get off the mic here before,
Tell them
I do
about
too
the
much.
book while you got the mic. Sorry.
Yes. So I'm Dr. Anderson with Athletic Etiquette LLC, and the book that I authored is Athletic Etiquette: Athletes Change the World. And it is a book. It's basically the textbook for athletes to develop them outside of sports. And there are quizzes, there's information, inspiring information, exercises for athletes to do anywhere from elementary to retired professional athletes. The book deals with neuroscience, mental health and well-being, leadership, community development, financial empowerment, and globalization / global citizenship. So thank y'all.
Good stuff, y'all.